security fortresses and neutralize these networks. And to this end, I would want to make the following propositions for your consideration over the next 2 days. One is that we must be able to enhance our intelligence and information sharing, and my colleagues have spoken to this. It is imperative that we establish interoperable platforms that facilitate real-time intelligence sharing and exchange across agencies and borders. And I'm happy that the Director Tubsam is here on behalf of several of his colleagues from the region. This includes strengthening joint data centers, harmonizing data protocols, and embedding community-generated insights into national threat assessments. Border-related intelligence must be actionable, inclusive, and also anticipatory. Number two is we need to leverage on technology so that we create smart border infrastructure. And our friend from UNOTC has spoken to some of this, including the ones that we are doing with our teams at immigration and the border management teams in terms of passenger identification, the recognition, and also what Interpol and Afripol are doing to be able to help us in managing the movement of people. Now, this infrastructure must be complemented by trained personnel and institutional framework so that then there is accountability as well as responsiveness. One of the biggest challenges we face over time is lack of capacity amongst either the law enforcement officers or the different agencies. So we really need to find a way to collaborate better and also to institutionalize capacity building and development. Number three is that we need to empower the border communities and integrate them to be part of the early warning systems. And Ambassador has spoken to a number of programs, as well as the soft programs that we are undertaking, particularly with the border communities, so that they feel part of all these efforts. These communities are not just passive observers. By integrating them into early warning systems through livelihood support programs and civic education initiatives, we build trust and resilience from the bottom to the top. Number four is that we must be able to create and institutionalize cross-border cooperation mechanism. It's self-evident that joint task forces, shared patrols, and coordinated response protocols with neighboring states are effective when well implemented. Our borders must therefore reflect a shared commitment to peace and mutual protection through structured and sustainable frameworks that are contextualized, innovative, and responsive. And when we began, we listened to the Kenyan national anthem, then we went to the East African anthem and the African or the AU anthem. And the common theme that was running in all those anthems is the need for us to be one united people, and just calling on us to look after each other without the necessity of having to compete on things that would make the growth of the continent much more difficult. Finally, we must be able to embed border security within the broader governance and development agenda. So there are issues of security as well as development. There is no development without security, and so also there is no security without development. These are mutually reinforcing points. Therefore, borderlands should be zones of prosperity and must therefore benefit from inclusive development, access to services, and participatory governance. This holistic approach reduces vulnerabilities and counters the appeal of extremist narratives. So there's a huge nexus between three main areas of focus, or what I consider to be also things that contribute to insecurity that then make it very difficult for us to address the challenges of terrorist activities. One, there's an issue around poverty. As a continent and working together with our international partners, we must be able to address the challenge of poverty so that we significantly reduce that gap. Then there are issues around the infrastructure and the social services and access to these services. When communities are unable to access what we consider common services, then people feel neglected. People then start to question government, and it becomes easy, or it becomes avenues for recruitment of communities. So as we look at security from the harder perspective, the social or the softer approach in terms of just bringing up communities is very critical. And the third one is the impact of climate change. If you look at how this has affected communities across the continent, where there's been too much degradation, it means the vulnerabilities go up, and then it becomes very good grounds, or it offers very good grounds for a lot of resentment. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my remarks, I would want to invite you to consider these propositions in your broader conversations over the next 2 days, and look forward to receiving some of the feedback in terms of outcome documents for us to be able to engage further, and also for us to be able to look into ways of intervening. I want to urge you to use this caucus to renew our common resolve and to generate actionable strategies that transform our borders into zones of peace and prosperity. We must reimagine border security not as a static perimeter, but as a dynamic ecosystem that disrupts terrorist mobility, facilitating legitimate trade, and fosters regional cooperation. Thank you. Asanteni sana.
That is the Principal Secretary of Interior, that is Raymond Omolo, attending that particular caucus on enhancing border security to deter and disrupt terrorist activities. In his speech, he talked about, based on official reports, over 80% of violent extremism fatalities recorded at the continent in 2024 occurred on the borders adjacent region. That's why he's calling for more concerted efforts when it comes to dealing with this particular cases. In terms of also the geographic concentration of terrorism along the borders is not a coincidence. He clearly states that it underscores the significance of borderlands to terrorism. You do remember the latest incident that we can remember is the Tondonyang massacre that happened at Lake Turkana. Of course, that was between the two countries of Ethiopia and Kenya, where even the officials from the National Police Service who are currently still investigating that particular issue that led to the death of 41 people and dozens injured on that particular venture. Also, where the military came in through the Kenya Defence Forces. Of course, it was confirmed by none other than the Defence Cabinet Secretary, that is Soipan Tuya, that military bases will be set up in Turkana to, of course, ensure that the military cooperation between the two nations is adhered to, and not to deter some of the trade and economic activities that are happening between the two countries. The PS also talked about the need for no barriers that should be placed between the two countries, but shared intelligence when it comes to these particular issues to deter some of the terrorist activities that do happen between the borders. Of course, that particular caucus will be continuing for the next 2 days, of course, focusing on various issues to discuss when it comes to the environment where the terrorists are exploiting, especially on the border points. That's why he called for the enhancement of intelligence and information sharing, which he says is very imperative, that will establish intolerable platforms to facilitate real-time intelligence exchange between the two nations, so as to nib that in the bud, given that he noted that those particular routes have been used for conduits and other arms that are being snuck into other countries to facilitate some of these illegal activities. He also told the members of the caucus that focuses on 15 African countries. And of course, the newcomers, he clearly stated that the Western African countries have also joined that particular caucus that will be happening here in the capital for the next 2 days or so. He called for the leveraging of technology to create a smart border infrastructure where all security agencies shall need to actively deploy and advance surveillance technologies. He called for an age of biometric systems and drones and AI-powered analytics to detect and deter illicit movement within the border points. The infrastructure must be complemented by the trained personnel and institution frameworks that ensure accountability and responsiveness, especially at the border points, not here in the country, but many African countries, given that there are over 15 of them who are currently meeting there. Thirdly, he called to empower border communities to integrate them into early warning systems, because you see, they're the people who are even closer to the border points. So calling for the community-led engagement with this security apparatus that will be mounted at those border points. He called for not passive observers, where he must turn to them into strategic partners when it comes to timely security alerts by integrating them into the early warning system through livelihood support program and civic education initiative to build trust and resilience from the bottom up. Fourthly, he called on the institutional cross-border cooperation mechanism, which he says it will be a self-evident that joint task force shared patrols and coordinated response protocols with the neighboring states are effective when implemented. Also called on the borders must therefore reflect a shared commitment of peace and mutual protection through structured and sustainable frameworks that are coexistence, innovative and responsiveness. Now further, he called for embedded border security within broader governance and development agenda to complement what the communities will be doing at the end of the day once they are alerted to such kind of situation, how some of this development agenda can, of course, ensure that those communities living at those border points are able to, of course, identify some of these issues that they're witnessing at the border points. Now, this is because of the security and development mutually reinforcing. He further called on the borderlands should be zoned of prosperity and must therefore benefit from the inclusive development, accessible to services and participatory governance, like for example that the one I gave you, where the military will be setting up a base there in Turkana, where they have acquired land. That means development for the people of that particular area. The holistic approach that reduces vulnerability in countries, the appeal of extremism and narratives. Now that was the fourth caucus of the enhancing border security to deter and disrupt terrorist activities. Our very own Yusuf Farah will be joining us, of course, to tell us more what some of the participants are saying, given that over 15 countries are currently participating in that particular caucus. Of course, with the newcomers, the West African countries are also joining that particular caucus. Also keeping a close eye on the Kenya School of Government. Any moment from now, I'll be taking you live where the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum Coordinating Committee Inception Conference is happening at the Kenya School of Government, where EACC is part of that particular conference currently happening there. Already we are reliably informed that the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, that is David Ogende, has currently arrived at that particular sitting, and as and when we get those particular links, we'll be crossing over there live. You do remember the latest report that was issued by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, signaling to some of the corruption that have been witnessed not only in the public sector but also in the private sector, so as to complement some of the works they are doing, of course, following the passage of and assent to the conflict of interest bill. You do remember what happened yesterday, where even the president talked about how corruption has embedded itself within the August House, especially in the National Assembly and in the Senate, of course, talking about various committees indulging in that particular vice. Also in the Senate, when it comes to the governors during the impeachments hearings and determination at the end of the day, asking for bribes, allegedly, of course, a matter that the president clearly stated that will be investigated. Bodies like the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, likely to, of course, engage in this particular issue to ascertain If that is the case, that particular conference that is currently happening at the Kenya School of Governance will be focusing on the conference where it's the themed the Realizing Kenya's Good Governance Vision through the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum that seeks to foster familiarity, integration and a better understanding of the institution itself, that is CLIF, that is organizing this particular conference. Also provide a platform to deliberate on the emerging sectoral issues and shared experiences. Now, of course, the event is expected, or rather currently, together approximately 150 stakeholders are participating in that particular exercise, including government officials who are key to this particular conference that is happening at the Kenya School of Government. Also, we're keeping a close eye on Mombasa County, where the ACK conference, the 4th annual conference, is currently happening there. Earlier on, our reporter, that is Regina Manyara, ably informed us that the PS for water and sanitation, that is Julius Korir, was making the maiden speech. As and when we get a hold of our reporter, that is Regina Manyara, will be crossing over there live. If you're just joining us, our dear viewers, we were supposed to have a session on the Augusta House, a special sitting of the National Assembly, but it was adjourned due to quorum hiccups. At exactly 2:30 p.m., the National Assembly will be reconvening. Also tomorrow it will be a very important exercise, especially at 2:30 p.m. Where the Senate will, of course, decide whether to listen to the impeachment of Governor of Kericho, that is Dr. Eric Mutai, on a plenary session or the committee way. Of course, he is another governor who has for the umpteenth time, he has gone back to the Senate due to impeachment. Last time he survived due to the numbers of the County Assembly, where the County Assembly members were queried by the Speaker of the Speaker of the Senate, that is Amason Kingi, that you cannot impeach somebody on the basis of having another half person on that particular impeachment list. Right now, the MCAs have once again impeached the governor. Barely few months he survived another impeachment. He will be tomorrow. He will have to hear if the case will be heard on a plenary session or the committee way. If you're just joining also us, we were listening earlier on to the Principal Secretary of Interior, that is Dr. Raymond Omolo, talking about some of the security measures that the government, through our various security apparatus, also the multi-agency teams that are mounted on various parts of our country, especially on key border areas between Kenya, Ethiopia, Kenya, Turkana, Kenya, Somalia, on how they are enhancing border security and deterring terrorist activities. And of course, we want to head over to the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum Coordinating Committee Inception Conference currently happening there. You can see our very own Doreen. Doreen, thank you for making time for us here on a News Check. In terms of this particular conference, what is the key focus on this, given that you have already informed us that the chair has already arrived?
That's right. Indeed, the chair has arrived. That is the chair for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Committee. That is David Oginde. And he is here for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission conference in conjunction with the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum, whereby these two entities are holding a conference that is dubbed as the Inception Sector Coordination Committee Conference, just checking how far this particular body has gone with regards to issues of corruption as well as the war on graft for the year 2023-2028. Just basically look at how sector players are integrating integrity in their governance structure. Like I said earlier, this is a forum that has brought together various sector players, among them EACC, that is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, as well as the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum, CLIF, as well as various civil society groups who are equally here just to track the progress they are in as far as issues and matters of corruption is concerned. But remember, this is coming against the various conversations we've had recently as far as corruption matters is concerned. Just last week on Wednesday, you did hear the president accusing Parliament of corruption matters. He repeated the same yesterday during the UDA-ODM parliamentary group meeting in Karen, whereby he said that legislators are really failing to do their role as it were, just accusing some of those parliamentary committees of demanding bribes. In fact, even saying that up to 150 million for the impeachment of a governor. Yesterday, you did hear the president talk about 10 million that was also demanded, and this is to pass the anti-money laundering bill. So this particular forum is just coming at a time where we're really having a hearing of those talks of corruption matters, and particularly what we'll be expecting to hear from the EACC chairperson, who is already here, is what they're exactly doing as a commission. Because remember, when the president talked in Homa Bay, he said that there'll be no sacred cows, there'll be no phone calls from either above or below, and that he also mandated the commission to go ahead and start the investigations on these supposed legislators who are demanding these bribes. And also this just comes at a time where the conflict of interest bill was already passed, and now it's an act whose actually implementation starts today to sort of deter public officers from engaging into business, private businesses, and all this in a way to just see how best the war on corruption can be fought. So much as, yes, the CLIF as well as EACC are here to track the progress of how far they've come along. This is 2 years later into this 2023-2028 framework of this sector coordination committee. Much as they're here to track that progress, we'll also be getting to hear much later what the commission is doing as far as investigations is concerned, and some of these allegations that have been proffered by the president. You also realize that this particular issue has brought in some of sort of like war of words between the legislature and the executive with respect to this matter. So that is part of what we'll be getting to hear from the EACC chair. Are they doing any investigations? And if they are, how far have they reached with these investigations? And what next with respect to some of these allegations that have been put forth by the president? But so far, this is just currently what is happening here. Currently, they are on break, and much later, just getting back to hear what more the commission is, what they're currently doing, and what more they're set to do in respect to issues of fighting corruption. Hashim.
Well, Doreen, before I let you go, you do know this also comes in the backdrop of the various 52% that was cited by EACC when it comes to giving bribes. And just quickly, in 30 seconds, just tell us if they're going to talk about how they're going to implement this particular issue. You do remember that 52.1% was the most common form of corruption witnessed in public offices, especially where that followed by a 41.9% of favoritism within the public sector. I do hear we have lost our very own, that is Doreen Narangi. As and when we get a hold of her, we'll be talking to her. You have just heard the other particular Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum Coordinating Committee Inception Conference currently happening at the Kenya School of Government. Will start any moment from now. Already the chief guest, that is the EACC chair, Dr. David Oginde, has arrived, and as and when he starts making his maiden speech, we'll be crossing over there live. Also, as Doreen has informed us, journalists are aiming to ask the EACC following President William Ruto's remarks yesterday in the PG meeting between ODM and UDA, also in Homa Bay, when it comes to investigating Parliament. You do remember when parliamentarians were telling the president to name and shame some of those MPs who are demanding those bribes. The legislators were told by the president they will be arrested. Now, that particular investigation, we are yet to ascertain from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, if they have started any investigation into that, or if they have, so what action will they be taking against those legislators. Any moment from now, also we'll be taking you to Mombasa County, where the ACK conference of the 4th annual is happening. Our very own Regina Manyara is currently there, but let's go to the speeches that are being made on the floor of the 4th annual conference. Also understand the MD of Mandari is currently speaking.
First of all, to identify what is causing the problem. If it is infrastructure, you need to increase the capacity, but do it in a timely manner. What we have in this country is that many projects are implemented, studies are carried out, documents are kept in the shelves, and they are implemented much later when the situation on the ground has already changed. So the first thing you do is, once a project is designed, or before you commission somebody to design a project, identify the source of construction funds so that as soon as design is completed, that project can be implemented immediately, or it can be implemented within a given time. Because talk of traffic congestion, you have got first of all to carry out comprehensive traffic studies. And not all, I'm a civil engineer, but there are people who specialize in traffic studies. Engage qualified traffic engineers to do comprehensive traffic studies and from point A to B. But remember, if you improve point A to B, where is that traffic going? So there has got to be coordinated kind of studies, coordinated design, such that you don't do the kind of mistake that was done like Thika Superhighway, where you design a road 3-lane, 4-lane. It pours traffic into Globe Cinema roundabout in Nairobi, but the infrastructure around that area was not touched. It could not handle. So the traffic builds up all the way sometimes to Safari Park in Nairobi. So what I'm actually advocating here is, when you look at traffic congestion, the first thing you do is first of all identify what is causing this traffic congestion. Is it the inadequacy of the infrastructure? Yes, it could be the capacity of the lanes that you have has already reached the limit. Is it a lack of indiscipline among drivers, overlapping and so on? That could cause it again. Is it law enforcement, where I see, like in our country, where like the borders, traffic policemen, they kind of allow them to do whatever they want. That can also be a problem. So for me, traffic for smart cities is where I can leave point A, go to point B within the time that I had set. I had a meeting at point B, but I know it will take me 15 minutes, and I can actually do that. So the infrastructure is one, discipline among drivers is the other one, which is very, very difficult to address, and then implementation of projects within the given time frame is very, very key. Budget identification for maintaining not just the carriageway, but also for the associated infrastructure like traffic signs, traffic signals. All that comes with a good road for operations of traffic that is using the road. So you must make sure that a new facility gets priority number one in terms of maintenance of the facilities, so that the capacity can be maintained during operation. So what I would like you to bear with me is that at most of the times we actually try to implement projects, maybe because a certain politician has more influence from a certain area, but in terms of the needs or the actual facility that is required. One, the first thing, you have not engaged a very competent consultant who has engaged qualified people. You have not implemented that design within the given time frame. You have not set aside money for full construction. Pay the contractors, consultants in time, so the project is completed in good time, and also set aside budgets for maintenance of the facility, so that within the time frame that particular facility, now I'm talking of roads, but this actually cuts across even water projects, where you must actually have maintenance funds that are set aside once the construction is completed. And also identify, are there missing links that are causing this traffic congestion? Make sure that they are also included in the study. The construction of those missing links are actually addressed and implemented. But more importantly is to make sure that there is public education of how to use a facility. There is information that is available to the public. Involve the public during consultations. Make sure that they understand the value of maintaining that facility. They don't clog the drainage by throwing all the rubbish so that it doesn't work. And I think it will be very important to all of us if we did our bit. Thank God there's a lot of rain now. It's a blessing. So I leave you with those issues where comprehensive traffic studies very necessary. Make sure that the projects are actually implemented in good time. There is collaboration between the implementing agencies, traffic planners, and all the other agencies that are involved in the infrastructure, not just the traffic. They are qualified personnel that are doing the design. If it is traffic signs, we must engage qualified traffic engineers and make sure that you engage, particularly the young minds, the young engineers. These days, some of us are on our way out. It's very important that we tap into your knowledge, or particularly the AI, or particularly the innovations that you come up with. We listen to you and we actually implement what you suggest. And if they are during construction, there is the issue of safety. During construction, even outside here, there is already a dual carriageway that is being done, but you see a lot of gaps in terms of traffic safety. Signage is wanting. So it is very important that you maintain the signage during construction, and even after the project is completed, signage must be maintained. And I thank Ken, at least I see like the newly constructed roads these days, they are engaging contractors to do maintenance where they are unclogging the drainage, maintaining road signs, maintaining the barriers, the crash barriers, whenever they are damaged, so that the safety is not compromised. But more importantly, I cannot stress hard enough, that is the issue of discipline when we are driving. I see that whenever I'm driving, sometimes you have to drive 3 cars, the one ahead of you, the one behind you, and the one you are driving. Because you never know, this guy is coming at a speed that if I get an emergency, he is just a few meters behind me. And ahead of me, leave enough gap so that at least you, in case of an emergency, you can actually be able to brake your car. So I've been told to...
Well, that is the ACK conference, the fourth of itself, currently happening in Mombasa. Now, the theme is driving, navigating industry from 4.0 to 5.0. This is day 2 of the thematic areas are smart cities and smart water system. Earlier on, the chief guest, who is the PS for Water and Sanitation, Julius Korir, made his presentation, of course, talking about the efforts the government is making through that particular sector in implementing various projects under that particular state department. Now, of course, those were some of the key events that we wanted to bring forth. Remember, this was necessitated by Parliament, given that the members of Parliament lacked quorum within their special sitting, that is the National Assembly, forcing that particular session to be carried out at exactly 2:30 p.m. And of course, we have witnessed what has happened in the fourth caucus for the border security, where the PS for Interior, Raymond Omolo, of course, talked about some of the measures in the security apparatus they are making to make our borders safe at the end of the day. Also, we have had the opportunity to interact with our very own Dorina Range, who is currently at the Kenya School of Government for the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum Coordinating Committee Inception Conference, following the backdrop, of course, what the President had talked about in the PG meeting as well as in Homa Bay. Also, finally, you have witnessed the ACK conference happening in Mombasa. Our very own Regina Manyara is currently attending that particular conference. Today is day 2, focusing on smart cities and the theme, of course, navigating, of course, to from 4.0 to 5.0 when it comes to embedding some of the efforts that are being made within the national government as well as in the county. Of course, we want to close it there and join us, of course, in our subsequent bulletins at exactly 12. We'll be having Kurunzi, and of course at 1 p.m. we'll be back with the latest in what is happening here in the country and beyond our borders. But do remember that Chaniko KBC, and of course at exactly 12 tonight, the tickets will be up there. Kenya versus Madagascar in in Kasarani Stadium, of course, Friday the 22nd at exactly 12. The tickets will be there up for grabs. Of course, make your way there. And if you do not get those tickets, of course, remember that KBC is showing those matches, of course, free of charge. You need to just turn on your TV sets. You'll be watching it. And of course, if you don't have TV sets, you can also go with the link that we'll be providing at www.kbcplus.co.ke. For now, my name is Abdiaziz Hashim. The sign language interpreter at the bottom end of the screen is Lucy Mora. Good morning for now. We'll be back later on with more.
Are you a talented artist, or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with your music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, ride any talent.
Wakenya wenzangu, this August, something big is happening. Chan 2024 is here, and Harambee Stars are ready to shine. Let us come together and support our boys as they fight for glory. Tune in to KBC Channel 1 and let's cheer our boys. Because when Harambee Stars win, Kenya wins. Twende kazi, Team Kenya, all the way.